I have been designing and renovating bathrooms for quite a few years now, and something I have found to be very useful on my projects is a 3D model. Now, the program that I use to create these is SketchUp, so today I'm going to be showing you how I go about using that from my first time viewing a bathroom to making a quick little sketch and then converting that into a 3D model. This is incredibly useful for things like creating material lists, tile layouts, floor heating plans, design aspects, layout changes, and so much more. So let's take a look at how we can do this. The very first thing I'll do is I just take a blank sheet of paper and I'll walk into the bathroom and take a look around. I'll try to figure out the rough outline, the shape of the space I'm in, and then just create a very crude drawing of that. With this example here, it's pretty well just a square rectangle shape. So I'm just going to make a little box and then measure my two walls. I'm going to record those down in inches to keep things simple. And then once I have my two walls kind of figured out, I can then go ahead and start adding in some more details. Next, I'll add the entry door, as that's most likely going to stay where it is. And even if it isn't, it's nice to have an idea of what we're dealing with. So I'll put that down. I'll record the swing of the door as well and sort of the size of it. From there, I'll figure out the distance from that edge of the door to the corner and then do the same on the other side. Now, with this bathroom, we do have two windows as well. So I'm going to make a quick note of that. I'm going to figure out the width, record that, as well as the distance from that window to the inside corner, and just make a note of all of that. Of course, every bathroom needs a toilet, so we're just going to make a quick little note of that. I'll just draw a very basic toilet and then get the distance from the wall to the center of that toilet. For the vanity, a very basic outline works, rectangle, and then all I need here really is the length. You can get the depth too if you want. However, for our purposes, we'll just make a note of the length. We'll record the shower space as well, the existing shower that is, get those dimensions. Although in this project specifically, I don't need the exact measurements for something like the tub. I'll just create a quick little shape of it so that I know for later as a sort of point of reference. And I can even record the floor register if I wanted to. Again, for what we're doing with this one here, I don't need the specifics on that, but the more detail you can get, the better. And finally, I also do find it useful to just get the sort of height for those windows. So I'll just take a measurement from the ceiling down to the top of the window and then the overall height of that window too. So I might just make a quick little secondary drawing to reference that for later, as that can really affect sort of the layout and design decisions that we are going to be doing for this bathroom. And that's about it. It's very basic, it's very crude, but it's what we need to get going. I don't need something that's to scale. I just need some basic measurements, and that is more than enough. Of course, if you don't have SketchUp already, you will need to download it. So I'll put a link down below, but there is a 7-day free trial, which should be more than enough time for everything that we need to do. So just click the link, start your free trial, download it, and then you'll be ready to go. So once you open up SketchUp, you'll be greeted with this page here, and all we're going to do is click this one here, simple in inches, as that's the unit we'll be going with for today. So just click that. With the model now open, we need to kind of get familiar with our controls. So the first thing we'll look at is the camera controls. So if you just take your mouse and hold down the middle mouse button, you'll be able to kind of look around and change the view of the camera. If you then hold down Shift on your keyboard and the middle mouse button, you can also now move in the directions as you're seeing. So with the two, we can kind of get around anywhere we need to go. We can kind of move around, look in different perspectives, and then if we use the scroll wheel on the mouse, we can kind of zoom in and out. So with this figured out, we can just kind of go ahead to a nice blank space over here. This model is just kind of for scale. We don't really need that though. So we'll just go over here and we'll just get a rough top-down view. So the first thing we're actually going to use here is the shape tool on our toolbar at the top here, and it looks like this one here. Now there are different shapes, but right now we're just going to stick to rectangle. So we'll kind of select that, and we're just going to draw a square, rectangle, any size, doesn't matter. We're just going to kind of start at one point, click it, and now our square, our rectangle is down, and that is going to be our floor. So without pressing another button, another key, anything, if we actually start typing now, on the bottom right there, you'll see some numbers. Those can actually change, and those will set our dimensions. So all I'm going to do here is reference our crude drawing that we made. I'm going to type in 108, as that will be inches. That's the measurement using. Then I'm going to hit comma. And you can see at the bottom right that's changing. And then I'm going to do 114, and that's it. I'm going to hit enter, and boom, just like that, our floor has changed to our desired size. If for whatever reason, maybe you clicked a button, like if I draw a square and then click elsewhere, and now I start typing in numbers, obviously, you know, that first one's kind of there. So you can always undo, Control Z if you need to undo something. And of course, if you need to redo, you obviously can hit Control Shift Z and then it'll come back. But once you have your square down, now we can start moving on. So I'm going to hit spacebar just to get back to the select tool here. And then I'm going to get just a nice top down view. Now, because our bathroom isn't a perfect square, I need to know which side is which. So if I actually just click this line as an example, it will actually tell me the length here. So at 9'6", I know this was our longer wall and that this is kind of the bottom wall. And I want to just kind of keep that as per our drawing for right now. It's going to provide a frame of reference and keep things simple. Now that we have the square, I'm going to click it and it will kind of be highlighted like this. And I'm going to go up to the offset tool at the top here. I'll click that. And then from here, I'll just kind of drag this out. Now, it doesn't really matter how far out. We could go all the way here, as little as here. But for now, I'm just going to go wherever. And then once again, like before, I'm just going to type in 4 as in 4 inches and then hit enter. And this kind of defines our exterior walls for the bathroom. Not exterior in a house sense, but just as the model goes, this will work for us. And then again, back to our select tool. The next thing we kind of added was the door, so I'll just do the same here. And to do this, we can do it a couple ways, but I'll show you the tape measure tool now. So we're going to click that, and then just from the bottom, anywhere along this line, I'll just kind of go up, drop it, and like before, I know on my drawing here, I have 36 inches to the start of the door, so I'll just type in 36, enter, and then we have that. I'll continue from this line up. Our door is 26 inches, and boom. There we go. So I'll then take my pencil tool, just at the top, you can click that, and then just make lines to fill in our exterior wall here. I can then use the eraser tool, click that, and just draw through these measurement lines and get rid of them. I don't need them anymore. And then just as we've done on the door here, I'm going to mark our windows using the exact same principles. I'm going to go from this line, 12, and then 40. We'll do the same for the other window. 12, come down, 40. Pencil tool, line tool, and just connect the dots here. All right, now we have our door, we have our windows, and we can start adding from here. Now, what we do next, we have some options. If we're looking at a potential redesign, well, we might consider trying to keep it blank for now and just visualizing with this. However, in our case, we don't have a ton of options. Our tub is over here and there's 2 windows. Our toilet is here, and while toilets can be relocated, oftentimes we try to avoid that as it's usually a little bit more expensive to relocate a toilet. We have to think about our floor register, which is in this location, our vanity. So everything's already roughed in a shape that makes sense. We can also take a look maybe later at a different bathroom where we would want to consider a layout change. But I think for this video, let's just keep it simple. So all I'm going to do here now is start marking out a few other items. Something that's going to be really simple for me to mark out is, of course, that vanity. So I'm just going to go off this wall. 72 inches, drop that down. Now, I didn't really record the depth of this vanity because in our case, it doesn't actually affect the design at this point. We're going to be getting a new vanity for this bathroom, so we'll have some options for depth. However, let's just keep it standard. We'll say it's going to come out 22 inches. So I'll go off that measurement line, 22. And then what I can do is actually just continue from this line and go all the way to the corner. And you have these nice lines for right angles. So I'm on the red axis right now. Click that down, and then we have our vanity kind of mapped in. Now from here, we have options on what we want to do next. We have to think, why are we making this model? What purpose are we looking to get out of this? What is our kind of idea with this? So from my perspective, let's say that in the original bathroom, we had that giant built-in corner tub, a kind of coffin style shower where it's all walled in. So those are the primary areas that I want to be looking at and kind of redesigning for the clients. So for this project specifically, my next step is actually going to be to focus on this side of the bathroom. And so something I can do here is now I'm going to go over to the push-pull tool. I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to take this section of the wall here, and I'm just going to lift it up. Any distance is fine. And then because we have 8-foot ceilings here, we're just going to type in, you can either do 8 and then apostrophe, which would be feet, or of course we can stick with inches and do 96 inches, and that will build it up. I'm going to take my camera, middle mouse button, and then hold shift as well to kind of go up and change my perspective. So now we can kind of look and note that this is where the shower is going to be. And I like this perspective because, again, this is what I'm trying to kind of convey to the clients. This is where our tile will be going. So getting this kind of built up is going to be the most useful for what we're trying to do with it. I'll then go ahead and then just match it with the window here. And I'll even do this wall here. Might as well do the door. And then if I just do this, because there's no break in any of these areas, it will just pull everything up. We won't be able to see anything. So I'm going to leave this wall down. And something that I can actually do here, Control Z, bring it back down. I'm going to take my line tool once again, and I'm just going to continue this wall here. That's going to enable me to pull this wall up. It will pull that vanity line too, which we don't actually need, so I can just erase that. And then now I'm kind of getting an idea for the perspective, looking at the bathroom for where the shower and tub will be. Similarly to this wall here, I don't like how this portion's sticking out. I don't need that right now. I'm going to draw a line, and then we'll just kind of pull that down. Now, since we're here, we might as well just continue this window. So we did kind of get that little drawing, made a note of it earlier. So I'm going to go down 14. And then off of that, I'm going to go down 40. From here, I can take, if I wanted to, the shape tool again on the square and just kind of connect it, and that'll box it in. And then I can erase everything around it. Now, of course, we might want to do the door as well. So in our case, we'll just go up 82 inches. And then we'll just kind of close that off, erase the measurement line and 2 top lines. And now it's starting to feel like something that's recognizable. Now, something to note with our measurements here, the way that I record these is this is the actual door measurement. So this doesn't include, say, the casing, right? And that's something that we need within our design to kind of build out the rest of the space. So something I can actually do here is just use the offset tool once again, click this door, and then I'll come out, depending on what size casing you're going with, very standard would be 2.5 inches. So I can just type 2.5, and then we have our door casing in there. I'll match it with the window as well. We'll go out, hit 2.5 inches. And this is nice because when we're trying to decide the size of the shower, we don't want to accidentally make our shower too big and then impede on the casing, the trim work of our doors and windows. So we'll get that done too. Up next, we're going to figure out our shower size. So what I'm going to do here is just kind of take a look. So to my casing, I have just over 4 feet. Now, I know that for this bathroom, the clients wanted a bit of a gap between the casing and the glass work, just for sort of design preference. They didn't want it to look too busy, too forced. So a nice number here is if we just try, say, 44, and this is sort of the beauty of a program like this, is it's very simple to just redo things and then change up the perspective. But I can see 44, that gives me a nice little gap, 5.5 inches. That's plenty of room in my opinion, but again, that's something I could then show the clients, see if they like it too. And then I'll just match it on the other side and see where that lands us. And we got a bigger gap on this side than here, but I think that's okay. It kind of creates a nice effect with this window in this space, and it keeps the shower symmetrical, 44 and 44, and I do like that. So next I can take my line tool and just kind of mark out those measurements now. And I can even draw it on the floor. So something else, if I just wanted to connect this here, something I can do is as I draw it along this green line, if I hold shift down on my keyboard and then just take my line tool to this point here, it will end the line there. So I can hold shift, click now, and then I can actually start this point and it will just connect the dots. It's very simple. Back to my eraser tool, erase these dotted lines. And now we kind of have the shower. So something that the clients on this job wanted, which is very trendy right now, is a freestanding tub rather than a larger built-in tub. So we do just, of course, want to make sure that we left enough room with that. So if they went for a tub that was going to be lengthwise like this, standard 60-inch tub, it would leave a very small gap on either side, 2 inches. So a better option, and again, this is where the beauty of the model comes in, might be to consider a diagonal tub. But we do have our options. We're not going to get to that just yet. Instead, we're going to focus on a few other key tools within SketchUp. Now, I probably should have made a note of this a little earlier before we started building our walls up, but it's also a good idea once you have the basic floor plan without the walls lifted. Something you might consider doing is if you just hold down your left mouse button and select everything, I'm going to hit Control C on my keyboard and then just click somewhere, Control V, and that'll copy and paste everything. And I like to do that because I do like to have a very simple version before we start adding details. And this will serve to get some key dimensions and all sorts of other different things that we might need. So I'm just going to put this off to the side somewhere in the model and just have that as a backup. All right, so at this point now, I'm kind of at that point where I want to add a little detail to this model. We're not going to go crazy. This isn't a super high-end rendering. This is just to convey some general ideas, images, and all that sort of fun stuff. So all I'm going to do here is keep this very simple. Maybe I'll start by adding some textures. So in this kind of idea, this will be the shower. So these 2 walls will be tiled. The floor, of course, will all get tiled. So I need a tile texture. Well, something that I can actually do is if you go up here to the 3D warehouse, we can just click that and we'll just search tile. From there, we have models, catalogs, collections, materials. And for the purpose of what we're doing here, basically coloring things in, we'll just go over to materials and then we'll have all sorts of different options. Something you can do, of course, is sort by a variety of different means. You can search for more refined things too, and even something like popularity. So here I see all sorts of different options. I want to keep this very basic for my clients. I don't want to impose too many colors or tile patterns, anything like that. We're just trying to get a sense of the overall space. So for right now, I'll just pick something basic. We could just hit this one as an example, click download. And then it automatically will go to the fill tool and you can just kind of click and it will fill in these spaces. Now let's say that's a little too much, or maybe we have a tile texture that we're already looking at, we're already considering. So something else you can also do is if you just go to Google and you type in, for example, tile texture seamless, we can select that, go to images here. And then there'll be a variety of tile images that we can choose from. And if you find one you like, great. If you already have a tile you're looking at, you might be able to find something on a website where you can kind of download that texture and then import it directly into your model. Now in this case, I've already gone ahead and downloaded one that we'll be using. So to implement that texture, something I can do here. So if I just go to this fill tool, we'll have this sort of list populate on the right here. And from here, I can kind of explore around, get a whole bunch of things. But what I want to do here is we want to actually add our texture. So I'm going to go click this plus here to create a new material, and I'm going to locate the file. In our case, I have it saved on the desktop. So I'll just go ahead and open that up, and then we can actually hit OK and we can fill that in. Now this is incredibly small, and maybe if you were doing a very small tile that would look okay, but for our purposes here, something I can actually do now is go to edit and I'll change this. I'm just going to scale it up. So instead of being 1, go to 10, and now this is much larger and kind of fits the vibe a little bit better, I think. With our tile areas now textured appropriately and our walls being just white, that will serve the purpose for what we need now. I think another good idea at this point is we can kind of think about some other trim options. So something I might do here is, let's say I want a 5-inch baseboard. I might just come up on the wall. You could also use the measurement tool, but I can also just use the line, go up 5, enter, and then we can go across. You can just continue down. Now in this case, we'll go to our vanity, go down, and then I'll do the exact same on this side. And you'll see how it kind of catches the same height. That's very useful. But what I want to do now is I just want to add a little depth to this. So of course our tiles aren't going to be flush with the drywall, so we'll bring those out 1/2 inch. So I can just type in 0.5, enter. I can bring this out, 0.5, enter. And then the baseboard, let's just say we want it to be at the same depth. So I'll just pull that out. And as I'm pulling it out and I hold it here, it'll just match the depth of this. I'll do the same for the casing, same for this piece of baseboard, same for this one, and same for this window casing. Now the window I can actually push in a little bit, just push it in 2 inches, and that'll just give it a little more depth and help kind of the visualization of everything. The door, I can actually add an offset as well, just do something like 4 inches, and then hey, who knows, maybe I'll even push it in 1/2 inch. So now it kind of resembles a door a little bit better. And then we can look at the shower. Well, in this specific example, this wall here is an exterior wall. This wall is interior. So we know that for our plumbing fixtures, we do want to keep it on this wall. We also might consider a niche. And for the niche, my standard is typically I will go up 48 inches, which will be the bottom of the niche. And then we could go up 12 inches, which will be the top of the niche. We can take our measurement tool off this side and find the midpoint, which I think will look nice. And then from there, we can kind of play around with the width of the niche. I think in this example, let's say we want to think about maybe a handheld for the shower. Well, if we go too wide with our niche, we won't have anywhere to put that. So maybe I just go out a foot. We'll do the same on this side. And then once again with our shape tool, fill that in, push it in. For right now, I'll just do 3.5 inches. And then just like that, erase our measurements, we have a niche added. All right, let's say I want to make the walls here that are painted not be completely white. We want something a little darker than the trim. Well, something we can do here is we can just go here in our color changing tool. We'll go down to solid colors and we'll have a whole list populate that we can play around with. Right now, I just want something that's different from the trim. So I'll just do a light gray, as is tradition for my projects. If you know, you know. And just like that, we now have a different wall color from the tile. The window here, it would look better if it wasn't just white. So we can also go ahead and go to glass and just do basic, fill that in. And then we have some glass there. You can also delete this on the other side if you wanted to, although we're just kind of looking at the 3D model landscape, but whatever, we'll keep it like that for now. Now, something else at this point that we want to add is, of course, we need the tub, we need a tub filler, we need the shower controls. Now, I don't want to go to the trouble of building that in the model myself, and fortunately, we can just download this. So once again, I'll click that 3D warehouse button, and we'll go ahead and search for freestanding tub. And it will generate all sorts of options. Find one you like. Again, you can kind of sort by relevance, you can sort by popularity, and just take a look at what's out there and what might work for you. This one seems very basic. Maybe I'll try this one out. I'll load it into the model. And then I do just want to check and make sure that the size of this is around what I'm looking for. 30 by 60 inches would be nice. So I can just kind of measure that. We can see that this one's a little bit big at 5.5. So there's all sorts of different ways to scale. I think something that's very basic, if I just do this and type in 60, and then I take my tub, and now we can kind of get into the moving tool. So I'll click this, and I'll click this corner here. I'll just put it against this wall. And then something that I can do is now use the scale tool. I'll click that, and then with this middle one here, I'll just scale it in, and now I know that this is 5 feet, 60 inches in length. I can also go ahead and do the same thing for the width, and at this one, it's around 30 inches, which is perfect, so we can just leave that be. So now with the tub, I can kind of try playing around with that, getting it into location. So I'll just kind of roughly move it here, and I might try it lengthwise like this. We'll just kind of roughly center it in the space. And, you know, as I'd mentioned, this is going to get really busy once I have this wall here. So for right now, if I just kind of showcase that, if I went up with a wall like this, there is just no room for this tub. And that just seems a little silly, a little forced. So a better option might be if I put this on a 45. So I'm going to get a nice bird's eye view. We're going to take our move tool once again, and then we'll have these points. So I'll just click this one here. And we're just going to shift it to the 45-degree setting. And then I'll kind of play it off the wall and just drop it generally in this area here. And this gives us a lot more room between the glass and the tub, and it just might suit a little bit better, especially with this other window here. If we can keep this all symmetrical, it's a really clean look. But of course, this is also the beauty of the model. If you're finding that, hey, with this glass, no matter what I do with this tub, it's just too busy for my liking, well, great. Now you can start playing around and build a custom built-in tub, like a drop-in tub, something like that, and then get a feel for that, and maybe that suits you better. Anyways, with the tub now, I also want a tub filler, so same thing, we'll just populate that real quick. Tub filler. We can also do floor-mounted tub filler maybe, but yeah, we see one pop up here. And yeah, looks fine to me. Sure, let's just download that. And then just like before, we do just want to put this on a 45 to match the tub. There we go. And I'll just right now, just basic, very rough kind of line it up with the center. Okay, now we want to do our shower fixtures. So once again, type in shower fixtures. I do like this one. It's the wrong color, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and download it. And something I can do here is if I just put this off to the side, you can try changing the color. However, it probably won't work. So something you can do is if we just right click and hit explode, you can just keep exploding this until we get to a point where we are able to now change the color. Again, we'll just keep it very neutral, just like that. We want to make a group here, and this is all one item now. Same thing here with the shower head. We'll just make a group and make a group. And now when I select these, they're individual items, and I can kind of configure them a whole lot better that way. So because they're going on this wall, I need to change them over. I'm going to select them all, hit the move tool, and just rotate it 90 degrees. And then I'm going to drag them over, put them in the shower. And because we want this to look half decent, we're going to line this up with the center here. And we'll take our shower head here. I'm going to select the center and just move it up. We'll move this guy over. So for this, let's say we want to keep it kind of in between the niche and the glass work. So we'll just keep it there. And we could find the center, but for now that works. This guy here as well, we will just want to move over and kind of just center it on that line there. And I know it'll have to come down a little. And just like that, we have what's now looking like a model that makes sense. Something that is missing is our glasswork, so we should go ahead and add that in. So for this, all I'm going to do is once again the line tool. I'll go straight up, hold down shift, click that, fill it in. I'll do the same here. Make it a box. That's fine. Don't worry about it. And then from here, for my kind of rough idea, I think the door would work nicely here. I'll do a very standard shower door size of 24 inches. You could go up to 26, of course, but for right now, we'll just keep that at 24. Draw a line down. I know from experience, we're going to have the gap at the top of our door. Our fixed panels will go to the ceiling. So I'm going to have a gap of, let's say, 12 inches. Come over, and then I can delete this, and this. Now, of course, this is glass, so we'll go back to glass here, and glass basic, that's fine. Fill these in, and just like that, we have a very basic mock-up for our bathroom. Now, let's say, now that I have this side done, let's say, hey, I also want to take a look at this side. Well, no problem. What we can do here now is I'd actually recommend going back to this and just copy another one over, because why not? And then we could just push all of this down. So sometimes I'll show you what can happen. It'll get limited because there's an object here. That's okay. You just go down until it doesn't let you, and you'll just keep going down until we're flush with the floor. We'll do that for this if you ever need to do this. You could, of course, erase these walls, just kind of mass select them and hit delete. That would work too, or just like this is perfectly fine. So then if I wanted to do the other perspective here, I would just kind of turn around and then do the same thing, building up this side. You go to the model, search for a toilet, search for a vanity, build your own vanity, search for some mirrors, some sconces for this wall, all that kind of stuff. If you've already kind of figured out how to do that other side, it's the same thing, just different models. Keeps it really simple and easy. Anyways though, so now that I have this, we can do a few useful things. One, this is a great way to show the client, or maybe you're doing this for yourself, sort of the idea, the proposed plan, what this might look like. You can kind of start getting a feel for things. If you really want to convey some sizes and stuff, you could go to the dimension tool, click this, and then I could say, you know, it's a 2-foot door, you know, a panel of this size. The shower is going to be this size, and the same in this direction. Shift that over so it's a lot nicer. You could do a nice view like this, right? And then we start getting all sorts of options. Now, here's something else that I really like this model in, and what I have found to be a great use for it. So if I now just take this, I'm just going to make another copy of this specific one, and I'll just drop it somewhere over here. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and with this tub, I will actually delete it. I'll delete this tub filler, and I'll also get rid of these glass pieces. And we don't need these either, to be honest. So now with this, we can do some cool things. Let's start by maybe figuring out a tile layout. So let's say in this one, the clients are thinking about using 24-inch by 24-inch tile. Well, with the shower being this size, we do know that a 24-inch tile is actually going to be, say, 23.5 inches. However, because we're not at 48, we can't have two tiles fit in this space. So something that'll look nice, what if we just make it symmetrical? So we'll draw a line there and draw a line in the center here. There we go. That's another thing. If you're trying to find the center of something, let's say I pull off this corner, when it turns blue, that is the midpoint. So it's kind of smart in the sense that it knows I'm trying to measure this distance. So that will show me the midpoint of this line right here, assuming you haven't added a bunch of lines within it. Like if I started doing random lines in this, that will confuse it. So now if I try to find the midpoint here, it'll probably, yeah, it's like way over here. So just be aware of that. Now we know from experience, or maybe some of you don't know, but even though it's an 8-foot ceiling, if we just took our 24-inch tile and just went up from a basic piece on the floor, because it's not actually 24 inches, we'll end up with a little sliver here. So something I might do instead is start with, say, a 1-foot piece, right? And then from there, after that, we'll have 24-inch pieces. And the way that I design this should be that the niche kind of lines up with that grout line. And then we'll go up and we'll finish off in the drawing. Of course, it'll say 1 foot. If I wanted to be really accurate, of course, you could just do 23.5, 23.5, 23.5. But I know that our margin of error is so large because we're starting with a row that's cut in half. I don't need to be that accurate for this purpose here. So all I'm gonna do now is I'll just kind of draw a line along the established grout lines here from each point. We'll do the same along this wall here. Now, obviously the kind of texture I'm using for these tiles just has like these grout lines built in. So that might be confusing. So for right now, if it's helpful, maybe I should have done this before I drew the lines. We can just kind of color everything in as a solid color if that helps for perspective. All right, so this is useful because now we have a tile layout. So when we start tiling, we have a plan already. We don't have to really figure as much out. In this shower, it's very basic, especially with the tile size, but sometimes if you're doing a staggered pattern or a different tile size, this can be really useful. But it's also good for figuring out tile quantities, right? Because now I can kind of count the tiles and know how many I need. Of course, you want to account for extra as well. But before we get onto the exact amount, something I'll do is maybe I'll draw the floor tiles now. So let's say the floor tiles are going to be the same as these wall tiles. A really sharp look would be to see if we could just keep this all consistent. So the only problem we're going to have here with this specific design is that if I wanted to have this be a full tile, well, it's not because our shower isn't 48, right? So if I actually went to 2 feet, we would have a little sliver piece here, a sliver piece here. So this is kind of why this can be so useful for figuring out your tile layout, is so that we can avoid things like this, or we know how to lean into them. So something we might consider is if it's a really small difference, like let's say 24 versus this measurement here is a difference of 1 inch, you could consider ripping down this tile row. It's not going to be the best option always. So instead, what we might consider is maybe our drain isn't actually perfectly center. Maybe instead for our shower, what if instead we just configure it to be, and for this, maybe we want to be precise now. So we'll actually say 23.5, our actual tile size. And we'll do the same here, 23.5. And then what I would do after this is I would move this line over here and do the same for this. Now, this example is one of those scenarios where there's no perfect answer. We're going to compromise somewhere. Maybe our grout line won't be perfectly in the center of this wall. It'll be over 1 inch. Same thing for this wall. However you want to do it, that is why this is so useful. And for conveying that not only to yourself, but maybe a client, maybe a partner, whoever it may be, but this allows for all of this. But for right now, let's just keep it simple. Let's just say we're trying to figure out our tile quantity right now. For all intents and purposes, we can just kind of line this up. We can come out, say 24. Okay. And then once again, if we wanted to, kind of just draw this in. Now here's another case. So now that I have this built in, we can kind of see, well, hey, if we just bring this shower out a couple inches both directions, we have room to do so. We'll still have a gap between our casing, and our tile layout will look that much better. And again, this is another great example of why a model like this can be so beneficial. Not only, like, yes, of course, you could have figured this out with a piece of paper, you could have sketched it down, you would have had that. But if you're ever trying to convey something to another person and having a visual reference like this, it can be extremely beneficial. So just another case point, but just an example for tile layout and quantities as such, we can now count. So let's say our floor tile is different from our wall tile. Well, I can kind of count here and count the number of floor tiles. So a row of 5 by a row of 5, it's 25 tiles. But hey, sometimes they come chipped in the box, or maybe a tile does break on us. It happens. So maybe I want to order a box extra, right? Maybe instead of getting exactly 25 tiles, maybe I get 29 tiles, 28 tiles, 30 tiles, right? A lot of people will use 15 or 20% extra. When it's large format tile like this, I personally just prefer to count them. And then I'll typically, for a quantity like this, I'll just add on a box extra. And then for the same thing for the walls, right? Something else we do like to do, I know in this example, I did use 1 foot. Oftentimes with our first row, we might do something like 10 inches. And that way, this first kind of tile here, the other half of it can be used for this one. And instead of this being 2 tiles and wasting 50% of it, this is now 1 tile and this is now 1 tile, right? So I could count it that way if I wanted to be really efficient, right? We could say 1 tile, 2 tile, 3, 4, 5, 6, 16, 17, 18 tiles. Maybe we add another couple for the niche, 20 tiles, and then another couple extra, say 22 tiles for the shower, if we wanted to be efficient with it, right? And have some extra for oopsies or manufacturing, transportation, all sorts of different mistakes that could occur. All right, so there's the kind of showcase for something like a tile layout and why that might be useful. Now, something else here is, let's say we're doing a heated floor. This is actually really useful for figuring out what size of floor heat cable that we need to order. If I just select a point, say like here, I can find a 45, it'll kind of highlight this line. I can then take a tape tool, go off this, and I'll just kind of go to the bottom of that tub, right? And then what I can do, just again, this is just for a rough measurement to order our cable, is okay, well, I'll also think about this. We're probably not going to be standing here either, but hey, maybe we'll heat it this area, but not this corner. So I'll just kind of go like this. We'll do the same thing down to say here and like that. And then I can kind of delete this. And we also don't want to heat under the toilet. So we have a couple options here. Again, for floor heat, because it's set sizes, we don't need to be ultra precise here. So instead, I might just draw a basic toilet. So I might do something like finding the center point here. We'll go out, say 8 inches. We'll come up 6 inches. Come over now, 16. Draw back, average toilet, let's say it's 28 inches in depth. Hey, let's try out the circle tool. We haven't really shown that yet, so I'll just draw a point here. Let's do like that, sure. Beautiful. And we'll just draw a line down, and erase that. So let's say here, we're not doing heated floors in the shower. Obviously, we're not warming the tub area. We're not gonna warm directly under the toilet or under the vanity. So it's only this area here, the current tile texture that we're going to be heating. So I can just select this now, and just like that, it'll generate my square footage. So 43 square foot. I'll just kind of look at, let's say I'm using Schluter Dietra heat. I'll find the heating cable that is closest to this number, and then I'll just get that cable. And then if we wanted to do, say, a heated shower floor, we could just click this and also get a number for that. So it makes it really useful in this regard. Something else we might do is say, okay, I know that I'm going to be tiling this entire floor. I know that I need an uncoupling membrane for it. How much do I need? Well, I can just kind of erase all of this if I wanted to, and then I can select this. All of this will take uncoupling membrane and find out, I'm going to need at least 70 square feet. For our shower pan, if we're using a prefab shower pan, I can kind of look at this, right? 44 inches, give or take. I know that Schluter, for example, makes a 48 by 48 inch shower pan, so I can get that. I know that for waterproofing panels, I know that this is less than 4 feet. This is 8 feet. So I know, let's say I was using a foam board system, I only need 2 pieces of paneling to do these 2 walls. I know my niche size, I need a niche for that, right? So I can kind of start looking at this and getting all sorts of different numbers, figure out my casing, my baseboard, all of that stuff. And this just makes it really simple and easy to do so. All right, now let's get a dimension, floor plan with actual dimensions. I think this will also be very useful. So we're back at the very crude drawing of just sort of the outline for this. So let me also populate in the tub and toilet. For the tub, let's just create a quick 2D tub. So I'll just make this 30, 60. We'll get a midline here. I think now if I hit circle, I go to the midpoint. Perfect. Look at that. Okay. So we have that. We can erase this. All right, perfect. There we go. Look at that beautiful tub. We're going to go ahead and we'll just make this a group. We'll bring it in over here. We're going to put it at that 45 again. So drop it in. Let's say I want to make the swing for the door here for both the shower as well as the bathroom entry door. I can go up here to the arc tool and I can just kind of select this. This was a 26-inch door, so I know we can come out 26 inches and then just finish the arc. And then same thing here for the shower door, right? We're going to do a 24-inch door, let's say, and we'll have it be an in swing. Or maybe we can also experiment, right? We have an outswing like that. For now, we'll just kind of do an in swing. What I might do is I'll go up here to dimensions and we'll record the window size. Maybe I want to do something like this to really convey some good information. I'll kind of come up here like this. I'll select this, and I think that's just kind of a nice look. I need to add this. You know what? Right, so I have my window, all these different measurements. And just like that, now we have like a nice kind of floor plan with all sorts of different measurements. I'd even add some labels if I wanted. So we could go to tools here and add in text. So I could kind of like draw up an arrow here and then type in 60-inch by 30-inch tub. Oh, by the way, before anything, I should also know we should be saving this as well. So you can just go here, save as, save it to your whatever location you want to keep that file in, give it a name so you know what it is. Something else we might want to do is like we can hit camera here and go to standard views, top. It'll center it kind of in this space. And then I could go to file, export 2D graphic, and then that will just generate again. We can kind of choose whatever location for that, but we can just save that as like a JPEG or something. If we wanted to send that image to somebody, it's there. If we want to save it for our own reference, we have that. Let's say I wanted to kind of now do something with this. I could go to camera here and I could go to standard views and front. You get a front view. You can change all sorts of things, play around with it, but I think this about covers our basics. I realize this is a SketchUp tutorial, but just since we're here, I thought it's worth mentioning. I know AI is very controversial, but I do think that for this purpose, it does have a pretty good use case of just getting a basic sort of rendering. It helps with some ideas. It's not going to be perfect. Things will be off. However, if you're struggling with designing the actual finishings, the colors, the materials, the textures, I do think this can provide a little bit of use. So I can just kind of add in that image, that basic mock-up we made. So I can just kind of give it that image though, give it a basic prompt like this, and then have it generate a mock-up for me. And this is what it gave us. So obviously not perfect. It didn't follow everything absolutely the way it's meant to be. Enlarge the space. Obviously there's a lot more room for this tub now. The window, everything kind of just got bigger. The vanity's in the wrong location. Obviously there's a lot wrong here. However, I'm not looking at using this as something I would give to a client and say, this is what we're going to do. But if you are the client, or if you're designing your own bathroom and you're struggling with just getting those finishings and what you like, I just think that this is a useful way to say, man, like I like this sort of white oak texture on the vanity and the door in combination with the greige wall color and the large format porcelain tiles here in sort of a nice neutral beigey tone. I like the way that the gold fixtures look with everything else, those warm lights in the mirror. Like, I just think it was worth mentioning this because I know so many people struggle with this part, and I know it's controversial, but I do think use it if it's going to be helpful for certain things. Again, we can see here, clearly not perfect. I could probably clean up my prompt and get it to be more accurate, some trial and error, but that's not what I'm looking for here. I'm not trying to have it build me a bathroom, just looking for a little bit of design inspiration. That's all. Anyways, that is about it for this one. Hopefully that was useful to someone, anybody. If you did find it useful and you enjoyed, you learned something, maybe just hit that like or subscribe button on your way out. let me know what else you want to see in this type of style of video, if anything at all. And other than that, I hope that you have a beautiful day. Thank you.